this book is about the spirit of music. It's about how can you find that spirit? How can you reach that point where you make music and it just works, you know? And I realized that the way you can do that is by connections that are not intellectual, that are physical, that are sensual, that are intuitive. And I tried the best I could, the way I do when I teach, to bring the reader to those connections. And I can only hope I succeeded.
Jean-Michel, you know, I heard your music by accident, and I was so happy that I did, because you were doing a tribute to Thelonious Monk, and you sounded nothing. You sounded nothing even remotely like Thelonious Monk. And I took that to be the greatest tribute to Monk that ever could be. You were expressing your musical personality through his. Then I had the pleasure of interviewing you here at the National Jazz Museum in Harlem, which I really enjoyed. And then you gave me a copy of your book. It's about music, the art and heart of improvisation. And I have to tell you, I was really taken aback. I couldn't put it down. And I felt as though we were kindred spirits in some ways, because you range so far and wide in your associations here.
People feel that they have to specialize themselves.
Right.
Oh, I have to be a jazz musician, I have to be a classical interpreter, I have to be a composer, I have to be a conductor. And I think that's a catastrophe for art. I think we have to embrace all those things in order to express something valuable. I think it's very important that bird's eye vision on the world, and on the world of art, especially in literature, in order to express something that goes just beyond the notes, you know. I think it's essential, actually.
In your book, at the get-go, you talk about love. Now, when I usually see stuff like that, I kind of usually roll my eyes. Mm-hmm. And I even rolled them when I started to read yours, but then I unrolled them. Because something like that is so personal to people. And even the definition of love, romantic love, I mean, there's so many different kinds of love, or are there? What do you mean by it?
Well, music and love have that common thing that it's inevitable, which means when you fall in love with someone, you have no choice. You fall in love, you know, that's the expression. And I fell in music. You know, when I heard Tchaikovsky when I was 3 years old, the Nutcracker, I remember. I fell into the music. I completely fell. I felt that movement of attraction, you know. And that's why I started the book like that, because many other artists pointed out that to them the artistic urge was like love. It was something that you cannot resist. It's like an explosion. It's something like boom. And then you become the instrument of your art. You don't have much of a choice anymore. And to me, that's the essence of art, and that's why I wanted to emphasize that from the get-go.
That's one thing that really jumps out of your music, is a tremendous amount of contrast. So let me ask you a question about some of these chapter headings, because this is really wonderful. I enjoyed so much about the book. Part 1, Teaching the Unteachable. Then there's this little thing called A Neurologist's Notebook. Right. Then Practicing the Unknown. And some of these titles are just so intriguing. I want to ask you about some of them. How about It's the Melody, Stupid?
There is this thing that's so important, and people forget about it. And I see sometimes people playing music and they completely forget about rhythm and melody. They're just so absorbed by, I don't know, scientific models, and they want to do very complicated stuff, really metric modulation and odd meters and very exotic chord changes. And you're like, can you play a melody? And they can't. And I'm like, can you beat a rhythm and talk at the same time? That's one of the main exercises of the book. And they can't. And I'm like, why would you want to go to such exotic things if you cannot master the basis? You have to go back to that. So it's the melody stupid is a way to say that, to say, the melody is one of the essential things in music. You can't, go to the complicated before you master that first. Many students, for example, and that's one of the points I make in the book, play tunes that they have never really heard.
Yes.
They play from the real book, and many times the melody is not played right, and I'm like, you're not going to play this tune right if you don't play the melody right.
Tell me about Walk on the Wild Side.
Yeah, Walk on the White Side is about something that sometimes I feel has been lost in music and in art, is that insanity, that feeling of, yeah, this is not a normal state. What's happening here is not usual. It's not like walking in the street or having a drink. It's something completely different, of a complete different nature, you know. And I feel like that is the thing that frustrates me the most when I'm teaching, is to see people remaining completely normal as they make music. Improvisation is an art. Many people, like Schnabel, you know, thought that improvisation was just something funny that you did on the side, you know, and that the art was about composing or interpreting. And to me, improvisation is a very, very deep art. And I said, you know, art and heart because, you know, of course it sounds good together, but also because to me, also people tend to see improvisation as a scientific thing. It's not at all. To me, improvisation is pretty much the reverse of it. Improvisation is something that comes completely from another place. And that's how you compose music on the spot, by going to that other place, by not being scared of going to that other place. So that the point of the book is, how do I get there? And that's why physicality and sensuality plays such a big part in it.
Most books about music and stuff, frankly, let's put it this way, I wouldn't pour water on them if they were on fire. But if there was, if I had to grab, you know, an armful of books to take with me to that desert island or out of the fire, yours would be one of them, because there is virtually every page, definitely every chapter. It's almost like Talmudic. I could spend a year just looking into the references that you make to this person or that. In fact, that started. You started writing about some things I had not read before, and I went online and I started looking up, well, who was this and what did he say about that? And I really think that your book is so much more than just a book about jazz or just a book even about music. It's a book about a philosophy, and I, for one, treasure it, and I strongly endorse it and think that everyone should really have a copy. Every music school, and forget it, every library should really have this in it. It's a unique accomplishment. I've been lucky enough to hear you, and I can't wait to hear you play more. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Loren. It was a great pleasure for me.